existing program. So we were able to go after our top choice, and that's the bottom line. Trev said that today.
He is. I mean, the guy's a bulldog. He doesn't take no for an answer very well. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I mean,
it was hard. I would just say it was hard, and the negotiations had to go back and forth. The Carolina Panthers were part of that at the end, and we had a couple even last-minute surprises there. But at the end of the day, it got done. And there shouldn't be anybody that questions the commitment that this university, from the Board of Regents to the president, to the chancellor, to the governor-elect, had in getting the right man for the right time at the right job.
You hear Trev talk about Matt being candidate 1A throughout that entire process. For you personally, what stood out about Matt, either from a coaching standpoint, a culture, just kind of all the above, but what stood out to you?
Well, you should all know by this time that I'm a big sports fan. Doesn't matter whether it's hockey, bowling, or football. I follow it all. And I've been a student of college football since I was a kid. Certainly, I had the privilege of being part of the head of the university at Navy, and I was there when we took Navy as an independent to what was going to be the Big East, and then became the American Athletic. So to be part of that, I got to know all the coaches, from Tommy Tuberville to Luke Fickell to Scott Frost to Matt Rhule, and that became part of that relationship that started even way back then. Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
All right, anybody have any specific questions they want to ask?
I know the contract may raise some eyebrows. What would you tell fans?
I would tell fans that, this is part of being fiscally conservative for a number of years. The University of Nebraska is a top 10 fiscal program. That what happens in Husker athletics does not impact taxpayers. It's independent of that. Sometimes that's forgotten. We're one of the few university sports programs that has that privilege. Being part of the Big Ten, which was a benefit we knew would show up as Big Ten media rights, the other media rights that we just did with Playfly, give us some flexibility. And what I think fans want to know most importantly is that University of Nebraska was committed to changing the way our outcomes were happening. And picking Coach Rhule as our top choice is a commitment to that.
When did you first meet Coach Rhule, talk to Coach Rhule in this process?
Yeah. So I met Matt Rhule all the way back in 2016. And I was saying earlier, when I was the superintendent or president of Navy, we had some really remarkable programs there. So if you remember, 2016, Houston was number 5 in the country. We played Notre Dame every year. Navy in 2016 had just lost Keenan Reynolds, the top rushing quarterback in the nation, and yet we were nationally ranked. We beat number 5 Houston in the fall. We beat Notre Dame for only the 4th time in 54 years that year, and we won the American Athletic Conference West. We got the privilege of playing Temple, a team that we'd beaten for years, and Matt Rhule shows up, creates this unbelievable defense. Navy goes into that game a 2-touchdown favorite. We lost by 3 touchdowns. And I remember congratulating Matt at the end of that game and saying, "You've done one heck of a job here." So I have followed Matt throughout all of that time. And of course, Matt and I, like a lot of these coaches, have maintained some level of relationship. So as the search went on, I had a chance to interact with Matt, mostly through phone and text. But certainly we knew each other. And as he said, relationships, as always, they matter.
What is it about Matt Rhule that embodies what this university and its football program stands for?
I know you all listened to him today. I was blown away, as I hope you all were. The man is authentic. He is sincere. He's going to bring a culture of toughness to this program. We're going to win the line of scrimmage, which will lead to winning football games.
What impressed you about the search as it went on?
Well, I can't compliment Trev Alberts enough. And when we talk about alignment, from Trev to the chancellor to the president to our board of regents, all of us were in agreement in the process. And the process involved analytics, not leaving any possibilities out there. Trev interviewed, as he's mentioned, many coaches. And what I will say is Matt Rhule was our number 1 choice. We had many other good choices. From Chancellor Ronnie Green to myself to the Board of Regents, everybody was in support.
What was your level of involvement? I'm sorry if you've been asked this. I just walked in.
Yeah.
What was your level of involvement in this search?
Well, I was kept appraised by Trev. It's not my full interview process to own. That's Trev's. but at the end of the day, the signature, the approval for the contract goes to the president of the university. So to make it simple, I own the bottom line of the contract. But I also want you all to know that I do this with respect to the Board of Regents. They give me that authority through their policy, and every Board of Regent was kept apprised of who was in the hunt, when the contract was first still being worked, when it fell apart, and when it got put back together, and when we signed it. And had full 100% approval of all 8 publicly elected Board of Regents.
Did the 9 million number give you any pause at all?
Of course, like everybody, it's a lot of money. But you know, this is what coaches are bringing in these days. And if you want the best, you're going to have to be willing to, you know, put up that kind of money. We're very fortunate that we have a sports program here that can handle that without having to turn that over to the fans, without having to turn that over to the taxpayers. You know, this brand will allow us to do that. And, you know, we paid attention to every level of detail in the contract. That's why this was hard. You know, and building these type of contracts does not happen overnight. It took a number of days.
There was a point you said it fell apart, where you kind of like,
Well, you know, nothing is first try. You know, there's negotiations. So I'll just say that it went back and forth a number of times.
The 90%, 8-year guaranteed. You know, there's some fans that go, "Hey, we've been down this route before paying coaches
Yeah.
that aren't coaching for us."
So I'll just say this, you know, we're not, you know, we know there's big money here, but this coach is going to be coaching here for a number of years. So if you just assume for a second that we're going to be with this coach for the next 4 years to watch that success build out, you have to look at the contract on what the backside of that is. And I'll tell you, the exposure to the university is, believe it or not that much different than what we had with Scott Frost. So we're thinking through all that. We'll have more details of that as the contract comes out. But our exposure on some potential payouts, should things really not go right, will not be that much different than Coach Frost. And that's something we had to pay attention to.
President Carter, did you get a chance to meet Matt and Julie when they came into Lincoln the first time?
Yes, and you know, it was very brief because Coach Rhule and I have known each other for a number of years. So it was really more of a reunion, a quick hello. We reminisced about the Navy Temple game in 2016, and then more of the real details of the process with Trev was happening between those two. But Matt and I stayed in touch throughout, and I just wanted him to know how much we believed in him.
You meet here or at Trev's house? Or?
Yeah.
Trev's house? that relationship that you guys had, strictly from that those AAC days and from your time at Navy and Temple, and I mean, is it normal for the coach to meet the administrator from
so the American
school?
Athletic Conference and a lot of other conferences do that at the end of the year. They do a retreat. So the presidents and the coaches and spouses all met. We would go down to Florida. We talk about the conference. Remember, the conference was new, so I had the opportunity to get to know all these coaches.
Okay.
They all showed up, and some, you know, I still remember meeting Tommy Tuberville and spending some time with him, and then Luke Fickell, and then Scott Frost, and then you know, certainly Matt Rhule, and you know, our own coach at Navy, Ken Niumatalolo. I mean, all these coaches know each other well, and it's a bond that they have, and you get to know who has what reputation. So that relationship was started well before I even came here to Nebraska.
So then when that name came up from Trev, I'm sure your eyebrows raised.
Well, like a lot of coaches, you know, we kept all options open, but at the end of the day, you know, relationships still matter.
So just so I understand this correctly, more of the money is backloaded in this contract?
No, actually, more of it's front-loaded.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the way the Panthers, you know, lack of participation in the contract, at least on the front side. There's probably still some more of that negotiation to happen, but we will have less exposure at the back end than the front.
Okay, so the university's exposure is not $72 million?
No.
How much is it?
Well, again, I'm not going to get into the details of the contract here on a microphone. That'll all get released. You'll be able to see it.
Okay, thank you.
Ted, I know you and I talked about it earlier, though. Was there any sense of doubt along the way that this was going to get done throughout the process?
Oh, there's always doubt. It's complicated. It's complicated whether you're bringing a coach from another program or from a coach that's no longer actively employed, or even somebody that was let go by an NFL team. So, yeah, these things are not easy to do. It's a great success story for our legal team that was involved, for Trev's team, the staffs, and the alignment that we had from the regents to the president to the chancellor down to the athletic director.
President Curry, you know, you said regents, Chancellor, everybody, Trev, working together.
Yeah.
What's the dynamic like between all of you to discuss and talk about potential candidates as they went through the interview process?
Cordial, understanding, wanting to make sure that we got the right candidate, the best candidate, and that's what I think most people were interested in.
There was a period of time in, I believe, early November when there was a lot of talk in the community about the regions, or some of the regions, getting together with Trev to discuss, have an update. Was it a meeting? Wasn't it a meeting? That kind of thing.
None of that happened.
None of that happened?
None of that happened. Okay. It's all speculative. And I think it's a confusion because some universities, the Board of Regents, have a meeting and a vote authority.
Mm-hmm.
The way our policies are written, the Board of Regents gives that policy to the university system president to sign the contract. It'll be presented to them as an item of note, but not for a specific vote. Mm-hmm. So the way I operate with our Board of Regents, there's a no surprise policy, especially on big items like this. So I kept them informed all along the way and individually. So there was never a meeting. We have Public Meetings Act, so we can't bring everybody together without notification or notification on what we're voting for. So like everything we do, we're very transparent, except in this process, which we were able to do this very carefully without having leaks or other outside influence.
So to be clear, could Trev update some of the regents along the way, like not without a formal meeting?
If I had asked him to, or if they specifically called him, but the way it worked is the regents trust me, so they stayed in touch with me.
Okay, so it came through you.
Right. Okay, thanks everybody.